Hi, thank you for watching Digging to China. I'm Dong Shong. If you have not done so already, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much. China may finally be moving on from 3 years of strict anti-COVID-19 lockdowns, but it's clear that the migrant workers in Kongle village are in no hurry to get back to work. The Kongle village is not a real rural village, rather it is one of China's largest clothing hubs in central Guangzhou, a labyrinth of narrow lanes filled with thousands of workshops. For decades, people from all over the country have flocked here to find work stitching together suits, jeans, and other garments. But the area was hit hard by the pandemic. When Kongle village experienced a wave of infections last October, tough measures were imposed. The workshops have been shut down for months. Thousands of migrants were put into centralized quarantine, then pressured to leave the city. Now the virus control measures are gone, and the streets of Kongle are crowded once again. Yet, businesses are still struggling. Factory owners complain of rising costs, sluggish sales, and mounting debts. But the workshop's biggest problem right now is a chronic lack of staff. Migrants are simply no longer willing to take the jobs on offer. It's unclear how other industries are experiencing the same issues, albeit the government survey showed that the factory activity was expanding strongly in February. But the picture in Kongle village highlights the tough times ahead. It is obvious that the pain from China's economic slowdown during the pandemic was not spread evenly. Weaker parts of the economy were often hit hardest and are finding it tougher to recover. Traditionally, mid-February is the peak season for factory recruitment as people flood back into China's manufacturing hubs after the Lunar New Year holiday. This year is no exception. On the streets, recruiters are holding up boards with the day's labor rate scrawled on them, and large numbers of workers are wandering the streets, occasionally stopping to talk to the recruiters. Workers ask how much the workshop pay per piece, how many pieces per order, then demand to see sample garments. They study the samples carefully, inspecting the numbers of stitches to calculate how quickly each piece can be completed. Then, most of the time, the migrants walk away. Several tell Chinese online news media six-tone reporters that the rates on offer are too low. They would rather not work than take such poorly paid jobs. Zheng Xiaozhou is one of such workers who refuse to work with low rate. Zheng is from central China's Hubei province. He has been in Kongle village for an entire week, but has yet to accept a job offer. Before leaving his hometown, he had seen a video on social media claiming that it was possible to find gigs in Guangzhou paying 700 yuan a day, that is $100. But so far, no workshops have offered anything close to that. If it continues like this, I'll barely be able to afford to eat, said Zheng. For workshops, recruitment has been challenging for at least 5 years, but the problem has gotten far worse during the pandemic. Recruiters say that workers increasingly refuse to take long-term jobs. Instead, they insist on taking short-term gig work, which offers less security but higher rates. Why is that? Experts say the trend is being driven by several factors. Compared with the earlier generation of migrant workers, today's young Chinese are less likely to be married and have children. That means they have more freedom to turn down jobs. In the meantime, the economic fallout from the pandemic has made working at the workshops less attractive. China's clothing industry was severely damaged by last year's lockdown. An industry survey found that nearly 20% of large-scale factories had a loss in 2022, and their losses rose by an average of over 12% year over year. Wages in the industry have flatlined as a result. Workers in Kongle village say their workshops haven't increased their rates at all since 2019. But the cost of living in central Guangzhou is soaring, with rents in Kongle rising by around 10% a year. Many migrants feel they have little to lose by holding out for a higher wage. Huang Yan is a professor at the South China University on Technology in Guangzhou. His research focuses on labor conditions in China. He says, refusing to work while the rates are too low is the migrant workers' way of fighting for more rights. But if they keep having no income, there will be a day when they go to work. The recruitment issue are causing serious headaches for Kangle's workshops. It's not only that they are understaffed, the quality of the workforce is also deteriorating, factory owners say. Compared with long-term employees, gig workers tend to be inexperienced and lack commitment, meaning that they often produce shoddy work. One factory boss, surnamed Wang, tells reporters that she often spends more than half the day outside looking for new staff, but fails to hire a single worker. However, hiring no one is better than recruiting a low-skilled gig worker, she says. When visiting Wang at her factory, she is busy restitching a towering pile of pants. They were originally done by a worker she'd hired that morning, she explains. Only half of the 17 workstations in the factory are occupied. These gig workers are hard to manage, says Wang. They come here to do several hours work, get paid, and leave. They don't give you the chance to complain about the quality. But raising her wages to attract better workers is impossible, Wang says. Since she started the business in 2013, the monthly rent on her 200 square meter factory has increased from 8,000 yuan to 16,000 yuan. But the unit price paid by her clients has only risen from 7 yuan to 9 yuan over that period. The workers are not willing to accept low rates, and the clients are not willing to raise their price, Wang says. For Wang, the financial pressure is intense. She took out a 200,000 yuan loan to open the factory a decade ago, but turning a profit soon proved difficult. During the pandemic, her losses piled up. To keep the business running this year, she had to mortgage her family's last major asset, an Audi car. Everyone says that the business will be much better this year, but that's not how I feel, Wang says. I'm not receiving many orders. I can't find enough workers to finish the orders I have. Gig work also brings risks to the workers themselves, experts say. Though seasonal work is often better paid, the gig workers may end up earning less than full-time staff overall due to the frequent gaps between the gigs. They also receive fewer protection. Jenny Chen is an associate professor of sociology at the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. She says, while they desperately search for something worthy of their labor time and effort, they don't have access to basic social security benefits. It's frustrating even when the local economy is slowly starting to revitalize. Workers in Kangle, however, often don't appear to be thinking long-term. Dong Dong, a 34-year-old migrant worker from East China's Jiangxi province, says that he is resigned to the fact that he will be unable to save enough money for his retirement. Instead, he is focusing on making his life less stressful. Under the ravages of reality and the pandemic, I have achieved the idea of lying flat, says Dong Dong. I have stayed in one factory for 4 years, not because it pays well, but because I'm used to it. Dong Dong says he has tried to save money, but found that it's almost impossible. Living costs are going up all the time, but the factory hasn't raised his unit rate for at least 4 years, he says. Trying to cut down on spending has not worked either. Sometimes it is just too tempting to buy street snacks and shop online. The only thing that can change my life is winning the lottery, he says. There is a sense in Kangle that things may have reached an end game. One thing that both the factory owners and the workers agree about is that the local garment industry has passed its heyday. Central Guangzhou is no longer a cheap place to do business. Now the local government is proposing a sweeping solution, moving the garment industry out of Guangzhou and into a new industrial park in Qingyuan, a smaller city around 80 kilometers to the north. Local officials have been planning this for a long time. The Guangdong provincial government first instructed Guangzhou and other cities to transfer labor-intensive industry out of their urban centers as early as 2008. but the financial crisis disrupted those efforts. As Guangzhou's economy recovered from the downturn, the city prioritized relocating highly polluting and energy-intensive industries such as electroplating, chemicals, and cement factories. The garment workshops in the urban villages were largely left alone. But the relocations are now back on the agenda. Between December and February, Guangzhou's Haizhu district demolished close to 134,000 square meters of illegal constructions in its urban villages, many of them textile workshops. Meanwhile, 460 companies have agreed to move to the Qingyuan Industrial Park, according to media reports. Whether this strategy is enough remains to be seen. Competition in the garment industry is fierce. Guangzhou's workforce faces threats not only from lower-income regions in China, but also from factories across Southeast Asia and South Asia. Nevertheless, the relocations are pressing ahead. At a recruitment event in Qingyuan, staff gave a tour of one factory that has already started production at the new industrial park. Around 60% of the company's workstations are occupied. Huang, the professor, says large-scale relocations out of the urban villages are very likely to happen, but he doubts whether the Qingyuan Park can restore local factories to prosperity. The whole market environment has been going downhill, and there will be more and more competitors in other areas. Cultivating a market takes 10 or 20 years, but the government's subsidies will certainly not last that long. The destiny of the textile industry will eventually be determined by the market, Huang says. Thank you for watching. Please leave a comment and subscribe to my channel. Just click the subscribe button right here. I'll see you again shortly. Until then, be well.